If you're visiting with us at the center, the way we do things here is every year we have an overarching theme, and our theme this year is values-based spiritual living. So every month we're looking at a different spiritual value, and this month's value is personal transformation and evolution, which seems appropriate to put in the month when Easter happens, because that's what that's all about. There's something about the time around Easter that seems to resonate across all faith traditions, all denominations. I think because it's a time of renewal just with nature. It's like after the long winter, there's this message. It seems to be knocking at the door saying something new is coming back, no matter that it's been dark and wet and cold. Newness is coming back always. Now, for Christians, Easter is the most holy of seasons, and it has in it the story of the death and the entombment and the resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth. But even for people who are not Christians, there is a metaphor inside the story about the many endings and changes, the small deaths in our own life that take place all the time. I'm thinking about, say, for example, the loss of a relationship, or the loss of a job, or the loss of a vision, or the loss of hope, or the end of school, or the end of the vacation, or the end of youth. So as we think about this idea that newness is percolating and trying to return, and that there's this thread of something that wants to continue, I'm going to talk about 3 points. And the first is this: take heart. Something must give way in me for something new to emerge. Second is, do not rush through the time in between the endings and the beginnings. And the third one is this: when it's over, no. No, exactly wrong. When it's over, it's not over. That's the whole message of Easter. So let me try that again. The story of Easter reminds us to take heart, because after every ending there is a new beginning, just like the seasons roll one into the other. Endlessly, endlessly, endlessly. Life is itself a cycle of endings and beginnings. So the first question I'm asking myself this season is, Edward, how well do you handle endings and beginnings? Please feel free to ask yourself. Because have you noticed some people handle them very well? They just glide elegantly through changes, and other people dig their heels in and they resist the changes that must take place. My life as a single man ended yesterday. Finally, one of my friends posted on Facebook, "I'm just so glad I lived long enough to see it." And even though this is an ending and a new beginning that I've longed for, a change that I wanted, I noticed there was some resistance. Oh, have you ever resisted an ending or a beginning or a change? Have you ever done that? 6 people. You know, it's as difficult as trying to stop the seasons from changing. Oh, when I was young, I tried that in South Africa. I loved swimming. And then as it got colder and colder, I just wouldn't quit. I couldn't accept that it would one day become too cold to swim. There are different ways that people handle endings and beginnings. Now, here's a list. Now, you see where you fit in. I know where I do. Some resist the end, so they drag it out. Some resist the new beginning, so they never try again. And some people avoid the quiet time between the two. Oh, no. Wait, there's more. Some people rush through endings. They get it over with, so the result is they don't actually say goodbye properly. No closure. Some people rush into new beginnings, and that means they start before they're ready. Yeah? And some people rush right through the quiet time in between the two. But wait, there's more. Some people get stuck in the ending. Do you know what that's like? You never move on. Some people get stuck in the new beginning. Well, what that means, I think they keep on starting over and over and over and over. And some people get stuck in the space in between the two, which is like overstaying your welcome. Not letting go. Not moving on. No evolution. Well, I don't like endings, so I avoid them at all costs. That's why I don't like movies or books with unhappy endings. Don't like them. And as a result, sometimes what I do is I put up with an unhappy situation rather than deal with the ending. There's a lot of groaning and nodding today. Sometimes I stay long past the time I should move on. And I most certainly do not like stories in which the most important characters have to die. Even though I know they have to, so that whatever is next in the story's evolution depends on that. Do you remember Downton Abbey? Oh my gosh. The celebrated PBS TV series, my problem was they kept on killing all the best characters. I did not like that. I didn't like that, even though I knew it was necessary for the evolution of the story. So you know how I handled it? I stopped watching it. I know, it's ridiculous. I mean, I knew that what was coming every episode, and I didn't want to deal with it, but in the end, I missed out on something much larger because I wouldn't watch the end of it. And that's why I think the Easter story is so gripping, because it tells about the difficulty of having to let go and move on when you don't want to. Well, that made everyone quiet. I have a friend who he calls himself a serial monogamist. And what he means by that is that when one relationship ends, he quickly gets into the next one. And at first I thought that was a good skill, until he shared with me the problem, like me avoiding watching the end of the movie, he was avoiding the moment in between. And he said, I confess, I have to step over that because I just couldn't face being alone. I understand, I'm not that different. I just handle it a different way. And the problem with rushing on to the next thing is that a person may not allow enough space to take in what happened and to learn from it, for the transformation and the evolution to percolate in the quiet time in between the beginning and the end. I mean, I know when I move on too quickly onto the next thing, sometimes what I do is I take with me my unhealed past, like my luggage, into the next thing, whether that's a relationship or a project or a car or whatever, but not with you, Kevin. I brought nothing with me. There is a God. Oh, wait, let's get back to the Easter message, okay? There are three important parts. I've mentioned them. There is the death, and there's the entombment, and there's the resurrection. And so we've been talking about that in terms of metaphors. And it's a reminder to me that without the death, there is no new life in the story. And without the entombment, there is no resurrection. So it's not either or. It's everything. That's life. It's the everything. So take heart. Something has got to give way in me so that that new stuff can come forward. Equally as important, Edward, try not to rush through the parts in between, Because even though it's ended, whatever it is, it's not over. It's never over. Everything is linked to everything else, and everything flows into everything else. On Tuesdays, I'm just finishing up teaching a class. It's the last class this coming Tuesday on the prayer of St. Francis. You know, make me an instrument of your peace. And in this last class, we're going to focus on those last 3 lines of the prayer that speak about how everything is connected to everything and everything flows into everything else, and you can't just have 50% of anything. It says, for it is in giving that we, and it is in forgiving that we are, and it is in dying that we are born. That's exactly right. You know, I'm remembering the first time I heard that old metaphor of the caterpillar. I saw it on a poster. You know, the caterpillar dies so that the butterfly can have its wings. And I thought, that's great. We're all going to become butterflies. Yay. But that's not the end of the story, right? You see, once again, I just wanted to stop and stay with the happy ending. But wait, there's more. Oh, there's so much more. I didn't want to follow the story through to the next part because it doesn't end. It never ends. The butterfly dies again to the caterpillar. And each butterfly must return to the quiet and radical transformation inside the cocoon, again yielding to another slug. But not before completely dissolving into cosmic sludge. It's uncomfortable. It's disorienting. No wonder some people want to rush through it. But isn't that what eternal means? Eternal doesn't mean stay here like I am. I want personal transformation, but I don't want to change anything. No. It means transforming, continuing, going on. After each cycle is over, another begins. All of life is such, it never ends. It is never done. It is never done. Well, there may come times when you think it's done because you found your butterfly wings. There will come times when you think it's done because you feel like a slug. There may come times when you think it's done because you feel like you're stuck in a tomb, but it's not over. No part of your life is ever, it's that we die through every little change of our life. Something must give way. Something's got to go so that we can move from state to state to state. Unless, of course, I do something to interfere with the process. That's the next big question. The next big question for me. Edward, how do you interfere with the process of endings and beginnings and giving and receiving and forgiving and being forgiven and transforming? What do you do? Because, we've all got our way of interfering. I read an article a while ago. It was 10 things you should stop doing right now to make yourself happier. I loved the article, so I sat down and I created my own list of things that I should stop doing because I realized there are many things I know that I'm doing that are interfering with my ability to go with the flow and allow the changes and cycles of life. Now, this is my list. I encourage you to make your own. Number 1, stop holding on too tightly. One day, a friend of mine, he jokingly called me a Klingon. It was referring, jokingly, to the fictional warrior race from Star Trek, because he said I would cling on to everything and anyone endlessly. How we laughed. The truth is, I'll never forget that moment when he said that, because it was true. And it marked a change in my life because I in that moment, I noticed how clinging on to things steals aliveness. And in that moment, I started to let go. Actually, more accurately, I started to let things be as they are. And I think it opened up my life to a happiness that I couldn't imagine. And I have to thank that friend, because I think had I not stopped or stepped back from clinging, I might not be married today. I'd better call him and thank him. Yeah. Step number 2 on my lovely list. Remember, this is my list. Berating myself, nobody else. Stop complaining. Because complaining has this sticky energy to it. And you know what it's sticking to? The past. Oh, when I reduced the amount of complaining, I noticed that much of my complaining was related to me not letting things move on. All right. This next one we should groan in advance for. All right, here it is. Stop longing for a better past. As if we can do anything to change our past. Not through complaining, not through clinging. We can't. Or can we? You know, someone shared this idea with me. It's radical. It's transforming. It's evolving. He said, you know what? When we completely commit to the present moment, the past loses its power and its flavor and its character. I never thought of that. That's been very helpful to me. Letting things be and staying in the present moment. And, you know, I got to see how much mental, physical, and emotional energy I had invested into maintaining, rethinking, arguing, positioning, wishing that the past would have played out better. Exhausting. What a rush forward in momentum and happiness in my life when I started to land a little more solidly in the present moment. Other good things on my stop right now list include stop having no quiet time in your day for your spiritual practice. Whatever your faith tradition, are you doing it? Stop trying to make other people be different. Exhausting. Stop putting other people down. Oh. Stop criticizing yourself when you make errors and other people too. And so on. It's my list. Oh, I want you to make your own list. I want you to make your own list and post it on Facebook. That's the advanced course. Because then you come out, you know? Then what you going to do? A lot of this in me has to give way so that something new can emerge. And when I surrender some of these self-defeating habits, sometimes I feel disoriented because so much of my personality is invested in it that I almost haven't met myself without the structure of complaining, clinging, criticizing. And so there may be a time of disorientation, and I'm learning to not rush through it, and I'm learning to not be so afraid of endings and beginnings and the time in between. So as we approach Easter, and I'm going to be talking about this next week, I'm trying to keep in mind that somewhere between the fear of the unknown and the doubt about the ability to survive the change, whatever it is I might be going through, and the attachment to however things may currently be, somewhere in between all of that, there is a never-ending something new that is trying to emerge, and to be available to it. Now, I have made an adaptation of a very famous prayer that some of you will know, to use during times when transformation seems frightening to me, or when I know I must let go, but I don't want to. And it goes like this. Spirit's wisdom within me gives me the peace to embrace the things I cannot control. Spirit's strength within me gives me the courage to change the things I can, as well as the wisdom to know the difference between the two. And so I live one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, seeing hardships for what they are. I take this world as it is, instead of insisting it be anything different. Trusting that goodness has made all things perfectly, I surrender to what is so that I may live in peace in this world and the next. So I invite you to read that with me. Won't you breathe in together? Spirit's wisdom within me gives me the peace to embrace the things I cannot control. Spirit's strength within me gives me the courage to change the things I can, as well as the wisdom to know the difference between the two. And so I live one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, seeing hardships for what they are. I take this world as it is, instead of insisting it be anything different. Trusting that goodness has made all things perfectly, I surrender to what is, so that I may live in peace in this world and the next. So I invite you to breathe in with me, and exhaling, letting your eyes close if that's comfortable for you, so that we may turn our attention to prayer. So that each one of us in our own way, according to our own tradition, may acknowledge that source from which we come, whether we call it the Creator or God or the living presence or love. As we heard in the opening prayer, every one of these words and every one of these qualities are merely pointing to that which cannot be described, the eternal, the immortal, the everywhere present something. And we speak this word of prayer this way so that we may remember that we live and breathe and have our being in that everywhere present power. So that we may remember who we are and what lives in us and what power to love resides inside of us. And so we use the gift of our amazing imaginations to think up a world in which we relate from that love to each other, where we express kindly and are connected deeply, for we are remembering by way of this prayer that we are indeed connected to each other and to all life, and that we are safe in this world of endless change and transformation and evolution, always eternally home right here. It is natural that gratitude rises up, a sense of peace also. And we close this prayer by saying together, and so it is.